Now, welcome to another lightning response video where I will once again take a question from the comments and answer it in a hopefully somewhat timely manner. And this time, that question comes to us from Parkesh, who asked, "Hey Thor, my question is about Zack Snyder's upcoming space opera movie Rebel Moon and the prospect of competition for Star Wars in general. Rebel Moon started out as a Star Wars movie, but he changed the script when Lucasfilm decided not to move forward with it. Snyder has said that the movie will be his take on Star Wars. A lot of people are saying that if it's good, it will become a real threat to Star Wars in terms of competition, and that it will become a huge franchise that will pull in many disaffected Star Wars fans due to its similarities to Star Wars. I personally am looking forward to this movie because I think it could be good and be a new take on Star Wars, and also because I think some real competition could cause Lucasfilm to take Star Wars seriously and focus on what the fans want because they wouldn't want to lose large parts of their fan base to Snyder's new franchise. So my question is, do you think Rebel Moon could compete with Star Wars, and what do you think the effects of Star Wars finally having some serious competition could be? Okay, so to be honest, I don't know a ton about Rebel Moon. It's not something I've really kept tabs on, which isn't to say I have no interest in it or won't watch it or don't think it can be good. It just hasn't been on my radar because, well, there's a lot of things on my radar, and I obviously keep track of Star Wars more so than anything and everything else. That said, I do know it was originally pitched to Lucasfilm by Snyder to be a new, kind of more mature Star Wars movie, one set between episodes 3 and 4, but it was eventually scrapped, I think after Lucasfilm was sold to Disney, and was then later reworked by Snyder into its own thing and was picked up by Netflix, where it will release this coming December. I also know there's a teaser trailer out there, which I saw, and it looks pretty good and interesting. I don't know that it kind of blew me away or anything, but it looks potentially very good. Other than that, I did find a brief synopsis for it online, which you can read right now, and yeah, that does sound very, very Star Wars-like, maybe a little too Star Wars-like, which worries me a bit because the more you make it, shall we say, a overt Star Wars clone, the more you are going to be compared directly to actual Star Wars. Which isn't an easy comparison to win. Not that it's necessarily a competition, but when you are pretty much saying that this is a new take on Star Wars or it's your take on Star Wars, the comparisons are going to be made, like it or not. And it's not like Star Wars is just the Disney era, which no, not everyone has loved. It's also everything that came before it, which is impressive, most impressive. Not to mention, and I can only speak for myself here, but I'd wager many feel the same, but Star Wars is far from just the gritty, lived-in universe. It's more than just the space battles and laser sword duels, more than just rebellion versus empire, and more than just good versus evil. I mean, one of the original reasons Lucas created Star Wars was to, as he said, inspire a certain kind of spirituality in young audiences without endorsing a specific religion, and the Force in the franchise is not used to propagate a certain kind of spirituality, but spirituality in general. Concepts of good and evil are clearly defined, and harmony is to be achieved through the balance of the Force. In other words, there was a pretty grand intent with Star Wars beyond just getting kids to buy some toys or parents to buy toys for them. There was an attempt to instill essentially life lessons into the young to hopefully encourage people to be better human beings, to be more selfless like a Jedi and less selfish like a Sith. And though, yeah, I do obviously love all the cool surface level stuff in Star Wars, it's the substance underneath it all, the core values it touches on, that has kept me a fan all these years. And though I'm not saying every piece of Star Wars content produced has to have some type of profound meaning behind it, the messages Lucas put in his stories about balance have literally made me more consciously aware of how I treat other people, how my selfishness can indeed impact other people around me, and how being selfless it's basically its own reward. That's really the whole idea behind being a Jedi. All that said, and to get back to the question or questions in the comments, well, first of all, especially considering I do plan on watching Rebel Moon, yeah, I want it to be good for that reason. But I also hope it can spawn into its own franchise and maybe kinda, on some level, be competition for Star Wars, because competition is pretty much always a good thing. It's good to keep you on your toes, looking over your shoulders and trying to make sure your customer base is happy and sticking around. Unless perhaps you're something as big as Star Wars? Because I think Rebel Moon would have to be nothing short of phenomenal to be a big, genuine threat to Star Wars, keeping in mind that, of course, there's not going to be any sort of mutually exclusive choice between watching the two. people can love both, which I think would be far more likely to happen than people watching Rebel Moon and saying, this version of Star Wars is so much better than actual Star Wars that I'm not going to watch the other one anymore. Now, sure, as you point out in your comment, you might draw in people who are already kind of done with Star Wars or on the verge of being done with it, but I don't think you pull anyone else away, anyone who's even remotely happy with it, and really replace it for them. Again, they may watch both, but I don't think you're kind of taking them away from Star Wars. Because, quite honestly, the only thing that can kill Star Wars is Star Wars. I don't think anything externally can or will ever come along that'll really replace it or even be that big of a threat to it. But it can certainly be destroyed from within. We've seen with the sequels and other Disney-era content, and yes, even to some extent the prequels back in the day, that Star Wars itself can turn many fans away and perhaps make them seek out another franchise to get invested in. Which all means that I think Rebel Moon can benefit far more from Star Wars being bad than Star Wars will suffer from Rebel Moon being really, really good. Like I said, if Rebel Moon is indeed something truly special, it may make Lucasfilm and Disney take some notice, and maybe they'll up their game a bit, as it may also be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back for some fans, those who are pretty much all but done with it. But in all reality, fans that are at all happy with Star Wars are just going to keep watching Star Wars. They're not going to jump ship entirely. And personally here, Rebel Moon would have to be something pretty damn profound to capture me anywhere near the same way Star Wars has, which isn't to say I don't think I could become a fan of it. If it's good, I almost certainly will. Only that, as I was saying before, Star Wars has a ton of meaning behind it. It's literally made me, as I said, a better person. And I have no idea if Rebel Moon is really aiming for anything like that. Is Snyder trying to create something that on the surface is like a more mature Star Wars, which you could kind of argue and/or already did and did an exceptional job of? Or does he have a truly deep, universal, and timeless message rooted in there somewhere? And will it be virtually the same one Star Wars went with? Is it going to be that much of a Star Wars clone? Because honestly, if you want to use the deeper Star Wars themes or messages, which I'm all for, don't get me wrong, I think they should carry on into future stories. If I ever write a book of my own, or when I do, I will probably incorporate the themes of Star Wars in there somewhere. But you'd probably be better off repackaging it pretty much entirely, not using the space opera motif again, but going elsewhere with it and making it feel fresh and different. Because honestly, if, again, Rebel Moon isn't fantastic, most people are just going to look at it and call it a Star Wars ripoff, and they'll go back to watching Star Wars. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about all this. Can Rebel Moon be a threat to Star Wars, or is Star Wars itself the only thing that can truly threaten and ultimately destroy Star Wars? Also, feel free to ask a question for a future lightning response video, or to re-ask a question. Just start your comment off by saying, "Hey Thor," and then ask away. Whatever you choose to do, please leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.